You're very welcome to Confident Women Island with me, Roisin the Cleric. Today we are celebrating Nollaigh, otherwise known as Little Christmas, which is celebrated every 6th of January. My guests today are Brita Birmingham, Stephanie McDermott, Deirdre Martin, and Anne Healy. Hello and welcome to the launch of Confident Women Island. And there's no better day to launch our podcast in 2022 other than the 6th of January, which is traditionally referred to as Nollaigh, which is also known here in Ireland as Little Christmas. Today, Nollaigh is a special day celebrated with women within our society and history, our great-grandmothers, our grandmothers, and our mothers. Now, in modern-day Ireland, is also a day to celebrate women past and present within society. Traditionally in Ireland, which my mother swore by, was Nollaigh is the day in which we all take our Christmas decorations down. They must come down today, not a day before, not a day after, or else risk bad luck for the rest of the year. When holly was the only decoration in our homes, it was taken down on this day and burnt. In rural, small town Ireland, especially women would gather in each other's homes or local pubs for a few stolen hours of gaiety while the men looked after the brood. So what better night, as I said in my intro, is to launch Confident Women Islands podcast. Joining me to celebrate this Irish tradition, I have a lovely panel of ladies. Brita Birmingham is the founder of Midlife Women Rocks Project, a menopause coach who has just published Ireland's first book on menopause. And Brita is a medical professional whose background is in midwifery and public health nurse. And Brita also has a degree in psychology and a master's in sociology. Deirdre Martin is a business customer experience and marketing coach whose background is in banking and finance. Stephanie McDermott is a lecturer in equality and diversity in Carlow College and an activist in human rights campaigner. Anne Healy, female entrepreneur and founder of Biddy's Good Luck Horseshoes, and is definitely sprinkles her good luck wherever she goes. And so, ladies, you're very welcome to my very first launch of the Confident Women Island podcast. I'm delighted to have each and one with you because I just found you all individually so inspirational throughout my time in meeting you as a radio presenter and producer, and you just are all so inspirational. So what better night to celebrate Nollaigh with inspirational women here in Ireland with each of you. So you're very, very welcome to the podcast.
It's a million, Roisin.
So now what I'm going to do for our viewers is maybe get you all to introduce yourselves. So Brita, I might get you to introduce yourself first.
Hi, Roisin. Hello, everybody. Lovely to be here on this Nollaigh. I am a menopause coach and researcher, a former midwife, and I have been working with women for years. And I'm a returner to the workforce. I was out of at home following the birth of my fourth child for over 10 years. I stayed at home and then I returned back into the workforce via a degree in psychology. So back in 2018, I became interested in menopause and midlife women. And midlife women, interestingly, are the most under-researched cohort in academia. And the repercussions of that are only just emerging. And I really like statistics. And if we look at a lot of the statistics around midlife women, mental health, around antidepressant prescribing, benzodiazepine use, you know, there's an awful lot of statistics that are disproportionate when you look at women, and in particular women between the ages of 45 and 65. Roisin, you were one of the first women that I met that actually talked about menopause publicly here in Ireland on your radio show. And I was so delighted that you had me on many an occasion over the last few years. But when I look at my own journey since 2019 and starting up, let's say, the Midlife Women Rock Project and the cafes, there has been a massive increase in public interest and also in opening the conversation. So I suppose I'm coming from a kind of a cultural and a societal perspective, and I'm looking at shifts, and they take place slowly. Cultural shifts don't occur overnight, but I mean, we're following on from the UK, and only last week in the UK, menopause, there was an article on menopause in the Times newspaper. Now, I never thought I'd actually see that the public would be talking about menopause on the front page of a very reputable newspaper. So I'm hoping this year that the Irish Times and the Irish Independent are going to be talking about menopause in the front page, because we need to bring it into the public domain. We need to uncover and unearth decades and decades of silence around this time in life where women have been silenced and shamed. And 80% of women have symptoms, but 20 to 25% of women can suffer quite significantly. And if the rest of us remain quiet, we're not going to help that 20 to 25%. And I suppose that's why I've come into the space as well. When I look at the statistics around menopause and around mental health as well at this time, like suicide rates in Ireland are highest for women at 51, and mental health rates for girls and women are highest between 45 and 55 in this country across the lifespan. So we need to bring menopause and perimenopause into the public domain in order for support to be put in place and enable women to thrive as they're moving through these midlife years. And that's me. I'm delighted to be here.
Well, you're very welcome, Frida, because I was saying before we went on there, you were the one lady who said to me, I met you and at the launch, your very first launch of the Midlife Women Rock Projects cafes down in Waterford. And I said, look, I put on weight, I'm like a Teletubby, and look at the fluid in my legs and everything, and the brain fog and my memory. You said, Roisin, in your lovely calm voice, Roisin, don't worry, everything will come back to itself. Everything will come back right. And it is. The fluid's going away in my legs. I'm not as brain fog. And, you know, I'm starting to remember things again. And I'm starting to come back to the young Roisin, pre-marriage, pre-everything. So thank you for that, Frida. Thank you. You got me through it.
Knowledge is power. That's the motto. It's the
That's
education
the motto.
piece, yeah, is missing for a lot of women, that education piece. And the dip in confidence is completely natural when you're in perimenopause, but you can come back out again. And that's what's so important for women to understand. Like 1 in 4 women in the UK are cutting their career short because of perimenopause, menopause, because they don't have the information. And that's what's the big factor there. So Confident Women Ireland, I think you're going to be filling a huge void here, Roisin, for us midlife women, and confidence and courage and building back, and us realizing the massive skill set we have acquired by the time we reach 50 years of age. It's undervalued. I think we're an untapped potential in society as well, women like of our age group. So hopefully 2022 will be a great year for all of us.
Yeah, definitely, Frida. So, Deirdre Martin, would you like to introduce yourselves to our panel and to our viewers?
Hello, everyone, and thanks for having me, Roisin. So Deirdre Martin is my name, and I am in business just 1 year. My business is consultancy and training and coaching programs around customer experience and marketing. But this time, a little over a year ago, I was figuring out what I was going to do with myself after having been made redundant following a 20-year span working in banking. I'd been a bank manager, I'd run bank branches and managed teams, I'd done all sorts of things in banking, and thought, oh, I'm done with that. And it's time to move on and do something a little bit different. So I really had to kind of stop and think, what on earth am I going to do with myself and my life? And you know, I live in Kilkenny, and I didn't want the commute to Dublin. I did have the option to go and work in Dublin. That just wasn't for me. I have teenage kids and you know, work-life balance and all that sort of stuff. So I had to figure out what was I passionate about. And one of the things from 20 years in banking, I could honestly say I was always really passionate about customers, and whether it was helping customers understand finance and banking, or whether it was helping them get the business loan so that they could move on in their ventures, or if it was helping them to get their dream home, or where to put their money to invest it and make some money on their money. So I had studied customer experience back in 2015, and then I started my business just this year ago, almost a year ago today. And I did some training courses, loads of training courses, did loads of coaching courses and marketing courses and all sorts of stuff. So I'm excited to say I'm 1 year in, I'm still here, still going strong, and here to stay, I hope.
Well, many congratulations and happy anniversary.
Thank you.
And if any of our viewers are watching us, if you go on to Deirdre Martin's Instagram page, it gives so much wonderful, practical and logical advice and tips and questions. She really gets you to question everything. So pop on to her Instagram page if you are looking for to set goals and to actually get yourself thinking about what's your next plan and strategy in your business. Deirdre's the woman. So Deirdre, thank you so much, because I know the other day you put up, the other week, was it before Christmas? Oh, you put up, what if you achieved your goals, what would they look like? Your business goals, what would you look like? And as everybody knows, I have that menopause sleep deprivation, really well knows about that. And it actually calmed me, and I got to sleep because I was visualizing. You got me thinking. I was visualizing what would it look like, what would it sound like, and what would it feel like. You really got me working into all them senses, and I went to sleep. So that's what you get when you visualize your business goals.
Well, it certainly sounds like they're lovely, big, ambitious ones that are going to help you achieve magnificent things, Roisin. So the very best of luck to you.
Thank you so much indeed, Deirdre. My next guest is Stephanie McDermott. Stephanie is a lecturer and an amazing, bright, bubbly friend, and a great women's advocate as well, like the rest of our guests here. Stephanie, would you like to introduce yourself to our viewers and to our panel?
Yes, Roisin, thanks. And first of all, congratulations to yourself on the launch this evening. And hello to everyone on the panel and Nollaigh namBan. It's a great day for women, and it's great that there's been a bit of a revival, if you like. You know, it's been quiet for a number of years, but it's great to see a new generation of women running with it, because it is great to put time aside, I think, to reflect. And I'm a very big advocate of reflection. So as you say, Roisin, yeah, I lecture down in Carlow College. There you see it behind me. Inequality and diversity, and part of my role there is to work with communities, to work with women, to work with refugees, migrants, and I really do enjoy the work I do there in terms of community outreach and in terms of engaging women and listening to their stories, because very often you can feel very much that you've had a hard day, but then you speak to women who have not been listened to for a very long time, or perhaps they come from a culture where patriarchy, the rule of the man, if you like, is very prominent, just as it was in Ireland not so long ago. You know, we can think of our grandmothers and mothers, and even today, women can very much be silenced and not listened to, undervalued. Ibrida said it there in terms of the value that 50-year-old women have and what they've gone through and the resilience they've built up and the skills of managing a household or managing jobs. And Anne, I know, is going to speak afterwards, but Anne worked full time the whole time when her kids were growing up, and that in itself is hard. You know, you have a child with a temperature the night before. What do you do the next morning? Do you give them Calpol and send them off? Or do you try and engage someone to look after them? So all of these, they are left to the women by and large, and that's not dismissing men, but it is left very much to the women. And I know that's changing, but I think we need to, if we don't say it, nobody else is going to acknowledge it. So I think that's really important. So happy Nollaigh namBan to everyone. And it's great to be here and a privilege to be here. So thanks, Roisin, everyone.
And Stephanie, it's really important to note you're also on the committee of the Women in Stars project here in Ireland, associated with the Amber Women's Refuge.
Yeah, and that's, of course, that's going from strength to strength as well. And by and large, mostly women on that as well. But it's the Amber Refuge are just doing great. And I think, I don't know how many counties now, perhaps 12 or 13
15, I
counties.
think, 15.
15 counties, yeah. And that started...
No, sorry, 18.
18 counties. Yeah, that started 2 years ago with Kilkenny, just in December. So now it's great to see so many stars and so many symbols of hope in terms of solidarity and representing women, and knowing that we're all here for women. We listen. And men, of course.
And it's to end all violence in the
Absolutely.
world, not
End
just
violence,
violence against women, but violence against everybody too.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Stephanie. And last but not least, our very own, who spreads her magic, her good luck Irish traditional magic wherever she goes, is Anne Healy. Anne, you're very welcome to the Confident Women podcast. Tell us, our panel and our viewers, who you are and what you do.
Roisin, thanks very much for having me, and I'm delighted to be here with the ladies on your launch, which is actually so good, on Nollaigh. So I suppose I'm Anne from BD's Good Luck Horseshoes, and I make beautiful pieces of good luck from the genuine horseshoe. I suppose pieces that certainly bring joy and happiness on good days, and will certainly lift the spirits on bad days. I suppose when I set up BD's Good Luck Horseshoes, I wanted to make good luck pieces that you could share with your family and friends. And aren't I incredibly lucky that I actually get to do that? In business, almost 3 years now, going from strength to strength, and we have great plans for 2022. So I'll be rolling those out as the year goes on. So that's it. That's me. Worked full time, as Stephanie said there, for imagine 37 years in AXA. And you're right, Stephanie, a lot of the decisions were left to the woman, and that's not taken from Ed by any means. But you know, you have to make the decision, and you still have to go to work. So that's the reality of it. You know. So anyway, Roisin, thanks a million.
You recently, just before Christmas, here in Kilkenny for Yulefest, you were also featured on Nationwide.
Yeah, that was great. It was just coincidence that Yulefest had looked to Nationwide to come to Kilkenny, and I separately had looked to Nationwide to look at me. So somebody actually joined the dots, and you know, I got to be featured on Nationwide, which was absolutely amazing. It's amazing for, I suppose it's amazing for BD's Good Luck Horseshoes. It's amazing for me, and it, you know, to date, we're a month down nearly at this stage now. It has made a huge difference, I suppose, in sales and awareness, and that's the truth of it. It's, you know, because it is all about getting it out there. I have an online store, and you constantly have to be plugging and putting yourself out there. But Nationwide did it in one sweep for me, which was absolutely amazing.
It's a coincidence too, because not only was BD's Good Luck Horseshoe featured on the same episode, so was the 1 Million Stars project, and which Stephanie is involved with. And Stephanie, I didn't know until tonight that it's a coincidence that the 1 Million Stars project and BD's Good Luck Horseshoe was on Nationwide on the same night, but you two also know one another.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah, we know one another a very long time, Roisin. And now, yeah, we go back a very long time. 20 years, Stephanie.
Yes, at least, yeah.
Yeah, at least. Yeah. And Roisin, what I didn't tell you, as well as Stephanie, you know, keeping all the memories, she kept all the parents together as well, and set up many little coffee mornings and whatever in the school. She was, Stephanie has many talents, so she has.
And photography being one of them as well.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
And you tell us it's a story that Stephanie always had photographs in her car, where she took photographs and she kept them in the car until she saw you all. Stephanie
had the camera around her neck all of the time. And Stephanie, I don't think I'm telling the lie when I say that. You had it around your neck all the time. And obviously when we went on, that wasn't just, you know, it was when we were in the school, it was when we went on school tours, whatever. And Stephanie would take loads of photographs. And then periodically she would give them to you. So you'd get a batch of photographs. She might be minding them in the car until she'd see you, or maybe until she'd see the lads. And you'd be coming home with the photographs. I have loads of photographs that Stephanie actually gave in envelopes. And and lovely reminders, you know, of I suppose the happy times of the KSP.
Yeah, well, we went to our children went to the project school, but I've always loved photographs, and I take them all the time. But I think, particularly with the KSP, the children were so used to me taking pictures. They never posed, you know, they just were very natural. So a lot of the photographs that came out of there, they were very natural, and I would get them printed and just shove them into envelopes, and they were in the car. I have envelopes here still for, I think, first communion envelope for someone in Aidan's class. It's still here, you know. I just never got around to giving them away. So anyway,
I think now you could get rid of it now, Stephanie.
I think I could.
And Deirdre, you know what? So going on to Deirdre now, what does I'm going to leave it to the panel. You ladies all talk together. What does Nollaigh Manon mean to you? And does it, like what's happening tonight, friendship and celebrating women's empowerment. So what does it mean to you?
For me, it means something very Irish, because, well, the an Gaeilge go flúirse go gum, go hána bhliain. Oh, it's long gone now, right? But actually, Stephanie's lovely picture behind you there from Carlow. I'm originally a Carlow lady, and I've been living in Kilkenny for over 20 years now. But yeah, so originally a Carlow lady, and I went to the Gael School. So it was something actually we always celebrated in primary school, was Little Christmas, because it's such an Irish tradition, and even with the Irish name, so it always had very fond memories. But yeah, and like that, in terms of Women's Christmas, it was something I think I kind of forgot about as I grew up. It wasn't something that we ever celebrated at home. And I think once I left primary school, I actually never really heard of it again, if I'm being totally honest, until a couple of years ago, where I saw people starting to post things in January about Little Christmas and Nollaigh Manon. I'm like, what's all this about? And then the memories started to come back from primary school, and I'm like, oh, no, that's what it is. So I haven't actually officially celebrated it since I was in primary school. So it's a real pleasure to be here tonight at your launch, Roisin, celebrating with these lovely ladies. So that's what
I couldn't have made it up. I just so happened I made a decision. I said it just happened organically and naturally. You know, sometimes you just can't make it up, and if you try to arrange it, it wouldn't have happened. So thank you, Deirdre. Thank you for that. So Rita Birmingham, what does Nollaigh Manon mean for you? And as a woman who empowers women through their midlife and menopause, what does Nollaigh Manon mean to you and for empowering women?
Well, like Deirdre, I guess, Roisin, I noticed this year, compared to many other years, there's a huge acknowledgement of Nollaigh Manon on social media in particular. Yeah. I mean, tonight there are so many different things on tonight for Nollaigh Manon, which I, over the last few years, like last year, I think there might have been like 2 or 3, but I noticed this year there's a massive proliferation of women getting together, Roisin. So there's something significant about it, I think, this year. And I see Orla O'Connor from the National Women's Council.
Yes.
She did the edge in the Irish Times today about,
I read that, yeah.
Yeah, about women's welfare and women's health, and she covered across the spectrum from pregnancy, menopause. She talked about domestic violence, talked about abortion services, specifically women's health and well-being, to again bring it into the public domain. I love Glennon Doyle, this lady that wrote a book during the year called Untamed, and she talks about uncovering and unearthing in order to recover. So it's all about this healing, and I think this is part of what's going on, like Catherine Corliss and what she's doing. Vicky Phelan, I mean, Vicky Phelan was a massive inspiration for me to find the courage to say, there's something wrong here. I need to speak up, because for so many of us, I think we've been self-silenced. That's what's written in the literature that talk about women for decades. We self-silence. We feel that we've no value, so we stay quiet. But compared to my mother's generation, or our mother's generation, we're educated here and we're in the workplace. So there's kind of an onus on us to speak up. Like Stephanie, what you were saying, there are so many women in the world who are not educated. They're not economically independent, but there is actually an onus on us to kind of get off the fence and, you know, speak up. And that's something that has been coming up a lot for me, because I'm naturally introverted. I'm behind the scenes. I'm a team member. So I kind of had to get, as you know, Roisin, I've had to kind of talk myself into coming into the public space. And but I'm so glad that I've come in here and I'm speaking now, because the feedback from women has been phenomenal. So it's about speaking up and just speaking the truth. And it can be something as little, you know, something so small as doing it within your family, to community, to national, to international. But it's about women's voices. And I think that's part of the women's Christmas as well, and what's going on. Her story, I follow Melanie Lynch for quite a number of years, and she's done magnificent work, again, bringing St. Bridget and the Irish Celtic goddesses into the public domain again. So yeah, and I mean, we are women, we are educated, so it's about bringing other women with us then, and helping other women to come along with us. I think that's a huge part. And again, Roisin, and you might actually talk about Confident Women Ireland as well yourself, and tell, you know, explain what you're actually doing, because it is very, very significant. What you're doing.
I think too, you know, it's great because Breda, you were with me back about in 2018. I kept saying I was doing it. I had planned the name Confident Women Ireland when I started my life coaching course back in 2007 and 2008, 2006 and 7. Then my NLP training in 2008. And I said I was going to park it until my children had grown up. Now they've left home. I'm free. I'm free. They both have their own places. I'm free. So, and then I always planned then that was 2020. I don't know where the name came from. So I started planning and putting everything together in 2020. Then in 2021, the website. And I put an awful lot of thought and strategizing and you know, what I wanted to look like. A bit like what you were saying, Deirdre, in your posts. What would it look like? So I really put an awful lot of, and I suppose like Breda, you did too, with what you wanted women's midlife rock to look like and branding, and you too, and Healy with Biddy's Good Luck Horseshoes. And I suppose you do too with women and on what your message is for women, Stephanie, and how you educate women and empower women to your. So it's all about really branding, even through education, it's about branding the message. And so I put an awful lot of thought in that. It's about empowering women with confidence and empowering women to actually find their voice. And it was through my menopause, I say to Breda, I found my voice. My menopause was awful. My son used to say, I was studying for my media and PR degree, and my son used to say, because I was always so active. I mean, I was like always doing something, never sat down. And he says, Mommy, you come home from college, you light the fire, you hoover, you get the dinner, and you sit on that sofa there, he says, and you don't get off it. And I went, I'm exhausted. And he went, that's not you. You know, and it was really just through the radio show, learning about menopause. And through Breda, we met through Catherine O'Keefe, and we met at one of her programs. And then I went down you sat beside me and we were talking and we just, and then I kept saying, oh, I wonder who that lady is. That lady was really inspiring. She was just really, she looked confident, she looked empowered, and you wore red trousers. I remember that night, and you just looked so elegant sitting beside me. And I go, wow, I wish I could just feel as calm as this lady. Lo and behold, was it about a month or so later, a couple of months later, another friend said to me, Roisin, Breda Gardner said, Roisin, you'll always talk about menopause. Why don't we go down? And I know a lady's launching a menopause talk and a project. No better woman. Off we went. And lo and behold, there is this lady. I said, oh my God, I wish I could meet her again. I wish I knew who she was. So I believe in fate. I believe in destiny. And here we are tonight. And that was around, when did you launch
2019.
2019,
yeah,
yeah.
2019, yes, yeah. But
Yeah.
I remember actually when I was sitting beside you, Roisin, I mean, you know, whether you call it the universe or what, but I was sitting beside, and I remember you talking about, you know, your children are grown up now and you were so positive. That's what really struck me about you, that, you know, you were going to do something different. And I remember thinking, this is exactly what women, you know, need to understand that there's this bridge you cross over when you're going through perimenopause, menopause. It can take a number of years. There's massive positives on the other side of that bridge, but we've only been fed the negatives.
Yeah.
And it's that negative story we're afraid of, but more and more women need to hear about the positives. And that's what helps us to thrive, take on new business. Like everybody here is kind of pivoting, and which is so wonderful to hear in so many ways. And then it's about helping other women along the way. That has to be a huge part of it. It's this collaborative message, especially when I look back, I knew nothing about social media, and it was so scary for me going on that Facebook and Instagram, but I had a great friend here, Nollaigh, who taught me how to use it, and she was working for the local enterprise office, and I just persevered, slow as a snail, and I still am very slow, but I just persevered with it. And that would be my message to so many women now that I meet in their mid-50s. I say, you know, think about it, go on social media, because it's amazing the doors that it does open, being on it. So, yeah.
And Breda, do you think that the younger generation of women are any different than we were? You know, like, so they have been educated and they have been made aware, or at least more than we all were. So do you think it's making a difference?
Well, when it comes to, let's say, perimenopause, menopause, until it goes into the SPHE programs in schools here, like in the UK, like it's only last year it went into the SPHE programs in the UK. So it's like a lot of people say to me, you're doing this work now for the generation coming up behind. And I say to them, especially friends here, I said, no, I'm doing it for our generation. We're not over the hill. We're certain. Yeah. You see, it's Maureen Gaffney said it beautifully when she was there nominated for the On Post Book Awards in, you know, Your One Wild and Precious Life. We have to rethink midlife now. Life expectancy is increasing. So if you're healthy at 50 and you look after yourself, the chances of you living to 90 plus are very, very high now today. So there's this whole new 50s and 60s space that's opening up, and leadership. I do a lot of work around leadership, and if Ireland are looking for the gender quotas and they're looking for more women to go on board, they have the women in the 50s and 60s are the women that they should be targeting. And that's where the women, if they want the gender equality and the quotas to increase, and I've been talking to the Citizens Assembly and the National or the Women's Council about this, that there are dots to be joined up here. Women are leaving the workforce because of perimenopause, menopause. Too many really, really successful, good women are pulling out when they should be going for promotion or should be going on board. So push in services and supports for menopause. I mean, it's awareness. Too many people are arriving in crisis because they don't realize they're in perimenopause. They think they're depressed. They think that, you know, that it's massive anxiety, but it's perimenopause, and that the treatment is very, very different to clinical depression or of anxiety, and that's knocking confidence again. And so that we're the generation. I mean, I work in the UK as well, and they're making massive inroads there into bringing it into the public domain and demystifying it, because it's not all negative. It's negative because we've been silenced and shamed, and that's why the story is so negative. But the real true story, and it's amazing if you look back over the last 20 or 30 years, 3 or 4 different women like Germaine Greer, Gail Sheedy, they were trying to focus on the positives, but they weren't heard because there were too many men. Now, I'm not knocking men, but there were too many men's voices still in the domain. The difference now in the last 2 years is that it's an increasing number of women that are coming into menopause, a space that was previously it was men, and male doctors and male professors were writing for other male doctors. It wasn't a women-centric approach, whereas Meg Matthews, she held the first global conference on menopause in 2019. It was for women, by women. And it was massively different to any other conference. And Louise Newson, the menopause doctor, who's very well known, she was actually the medic that spoke on the day, and she said she'd never seen anything like this. And there was a big shift in how Meg Matthews decided to approach menopause. So looking at it from a woman's point of view, rather than from a medical point of view. And it is different. The lens is just different, the way we look at it. So, yeah.
Very good, yeah.
It's really interesting, and you both talked there about education, and like education and formal education aside, education really is discussion. It's opening up, it's having the conversations, and it's about getting to know ourselves and getting to know how we relate to the world, and I suppose as women of a certain age, let's say, our relation to the world was that of staying quiet. Our relation to the world was don't make a fuss. Our relation to the world was, you can't do maths, or you can't do engineering, girls don't do engineering. So just to pick up on Anne's point there, our daughters better, and I would say, yes, they're better at talking to their friends and better at talking about all of these things. But the world has become so much more competitive. And that's and social media, it's good for Nollaigh namBan because it's out there, but it's also making the perfect image and making what is presumed as perfect. So I think there's a like every generation has a different kind of stress, I suppose. And in some parts of, say, let's say, look at Africa, and we all talked about getting periods and all of that. Women, they go to the red tent and they stay there for the duration of their periods. And that's, in a way that will bring around solidarity, and other women do all of the chores. But again, it's the image of stay quiet, go in there to that tent, you're unclean, come out when you're ready. And that's the kind of, we, of course, everything has changed, but it is the same thing. If we complain too much, we then, we're almost weaponized. Oh, there she goes again, So I think it's about education for men and for women. And I think, Roisin, you'll say that a lot of men are interested in, how to deal and how to manage, and what's the best response, because they love their partners and they love their daughters and they love their mothers, but have never been educated because it was never spoken about before. So I think that's really important. And in lots of traditional societies, and we're very lucky in Ireland because we have spanned that. We know what it has been like for our grandmothers, that once they got married, they had to stop working. We know about the lack of contraception. We know about the shame and being shut away in terms of if they got into trouble. And of course, there was no mention about men really. And Breda mentioned it there too, Catherine Corliss. There's so many powerful women that have brought this out, and we now know, the absolute abhorrent, dreadful situations that what women had to go through. But that's not to say that that's all ended, because we're still in a very poor position. And Breda talks about that there, in terms of our gender quotas. It really is. They talked about the 3 C's a long time ago. That was childcare, confidence, and candidate selection. Childcare is no longer a problem for women of a certain age, because they don't need childcare anymore. Candidate selection is a problem, of course, because it's about women being selected. And then confidence is the other problem in entering politics, So we're getting there a little bit. But I suppose, for me, I would never go into politics, because why would I bother? Because I've seen it over the years where, women politicians are absolutely taken apart in terms of how they dress, what they say. They're not given a chance.
Absolutely, Stephanie. They're not given a chance. You're right.
They're not given a chance.
Yeah, absolutely.
And unfortunately, some of them are not given a chance by other women. And that's a problem, you know. But I do remember, was it Adi Roach who went for president there a few years ago? And she had a beautiful, I mean, she looked beautiful on the poster. She had this red dress. And one of the papers picked it up as, you know, she looks like she should be on the box of a Kellogg's package, you know. That would never have been said about a man, ever, ever, ever. And I think that's, you know, I think women make choices too. And my choice would be, I'm not entering in that fray because, you know, I don't have that thick skin and I just don't. So it's a little bit unfortunate, I suppose, because you want strong women and understanding women and women who understand other women and women who understand the social issues and all of that. But at the same time, they're kept out of it because of the legacy that's there in Irish society, you know, still. But it is getting better. It is getting better. But, you know, in some communities, it's still, there is patriarchy, there's still power issues. And when we know during COVID, it was domestic violence is on the up, power, control, coercive control, all of that is on the up. But, you know, it is about giving women space to speak about that and listening to them and believing them. And that's what's really important.
Definitely, I'm very lucky to have you.
Yeah, no, I'm totally agreeing with everything you're saying. And I mean, I'm in several women networking groups as well, and I'm a huge advocate for women and, you know, glass ceilings no more and what have you. But interestingly, over the last couple of months in my global networking, I've met people in Australia and the US, and I met an incredible Nigerian lady who was a refugee into Ireland. And oh my gosh, this lady is 24, future president. Watch out for her. A fantastic story and background around exclusivity as a refugee coming into Ireland. And if you like, the socioeconomic issues that she faced in trying to integrate into society. But I just happened to get talking to her at a networking event, and this wasn't the point of my story, but she totally inspired me in so many ways. And I'm going to get her on to talk to some of my clients about diversity and inclusion as well. She's just so articulate and fantastic. And I must connect you later, Stephanie, if you're interested in having a chat with her. But my point was, having met with people in the US and in Australia, what's interesting actually is that people are now working towards a more feminine masculine balance. And what I mean by that are women who are advocates of men and vice versa, in the sense that, you know, a lot of men are particularly introverted when it comes to talking about their emotions. They don't know how to label emotions, and not that women necessarily know how to do that, but that women are much more inclined to be open to talk to siblings or family members or friends about what they're experiencing, as opposed to men. And it's about, you know, if you look at a man in a workplace, a man might become explosive in a workplace when they're trying to deal with emotions, whereas a woman might break down and cry. So, you know, you talk about leadership, Breda, as well, and it's about recognizing how people's emotions come through despite, you know, what their gender is in terms of equality, and how those things can impact how they engage, be it with a client or a colleague. And it is about finding that balance, and that balance can come from emotions, it can come from thoughts. And is it the emotions that cause the thoughts, or is it the thoughts that cause the emotions? And it's about trying to get that understanding. But something, you know, no matter what field we're in or what we're doing, it is about inclusivity, I think. So it's very apt that Stephanie is here, in my opinion. And I love what you do, Stephanie, and I think that education around society is so incredibly important, and something that I'm always talking to my clients about, because we shouldn't discriminate or be exclusive of anybody based on where they're from or who they are or what they do or how they came to be in front of you. Everybody should be included, irrespective. And And, you know, for me and my business, and part of the inspiration that that young lady gave me when I met her many months ago was to have a discount. So for my online coaching programs, for example, I've now got a 70% discount for anybody from a developing country who would like to participate in my coaching programs. That's just about inclusivity, because they shouldn't be excluded, you know, and the cost of what it is for somebody in South Africa, for example, to participate, they should have those opportunities.
And Deirdre, that's enabling, you see, and that's where, you know, we talk about equality, and people say we should all be treated the same, but we shouldn't all be treated the same because we all have different needs. So I may have a bigger bank account than somebody else, or somebody else has less, and you know, you may charge whatever it is you charge. But unless you enable people to take that on because of their bank balance, so it's about equality is, you know, it's there and we believe in equality, but really it's about responding to the needs of everyone, and that's really, you know, it's equity that we're looking at really. So I think that's what's really important. But it is, we are very, very, very fortunate. But you know, I know my mother struggled, really, really struggled. And I know your mother, Anne, as well, you know, and there were just different times there. There were just
completely different times. Yeah, absolutely.
Times.
Yeah.
They just put up with it.
Yeah, they did. They absolutely did.
Yeah.
And my mother was at home all the time, whereas I suppose I went out to work from whatever age, do you know, that kind of way. So we're different in a sense as well, do you know, but they were completely different times. You're right.
Yeah, completely different times. And I think, again, I'm thinking about, you know, the terms like, oh, her nerves are at her, which really is, she's mental health issues, the poor thing, you know. It was all that kind of thing, you know. And that's, of course, Midlands as well, and, you know, but I mean, there are huge inspirational Irish women, huge inspirational, you know, world women as well. And we're all, you know, we all play that role. And I know one of the, not very many people have said it to me, but a couple of students have said it to me, you know, when I talk about what they want to do, and they said, well, I just want to be like you. And I thought, well, that's just lovely.
Definitely, Roisin, what was very interesting as well was during COVID, I found when you talk about inclusion and diversity, Stephanie, the COVID Women's Voices group. I don't know if you've heard about this group.
I'm on it, actually.
Are you? Yes. And I suppose that's what really opened my eyes to the bias. There are these hidden bias in society. We're not aware of them. I can honestly say now, before COVID and meeting some women who had joined and reading articles in the paper, this invisible job that women do on top of, you know, going out to work. There's this other, we're carrying the home and we're carrying the family. It's an invisible job. And an Irish woman wrote a book actually that was published last year. It's called The Invisible Job. And she outlines that herself and her husband both work, but still, you know, as equal as they want to be, she's carrying more. And I propel that forward and looking at statistics like why are Irish women over 40% more women than men are being prescribed benzodiazepines in this country. What's that about? What's that statistic about? And again, why are mental health rates for women so much higher than for men or for women at other sides of the spectrum, the lifespan between 45 and 50? What is that about? And until we bring it out onto the table and look at it and ask, why is this happening? Nothing is going to change. So again, it's about joining up all those dots, and those women from COVID Women's Voices, a lot of them were working in the front line, Stephanie.
They were,
coming home and facing cooking dinners, doing homework.
And if you're like in the early days, I followed it, and it was men's voices all of the time. It was always men's voices that were setting the agenda, setting the narrative. And it is about the emotional labor. And Susan Venn had an article there a few years ago about the fourth shift, which is the shift in the middle of the night where you're getting up to your children, you know. So there's all of that. And I know many men who, you know, they kind of shake their heads and think, oh, you know, do you not have enough? All of this. But And I suppose that's the fear and the intimidation and maybe the lack of capacity. But I also know women who won't call themselves feminists, because of course feminism has, it has got, I suppose, a bad reputation by a branch of feminists that are, radical, and it's just too much of a jump, I suppose, for Ireland. But everyone should be a feminist. I mean, everyone has to be.
Men included.
Everyone has to be a feminist.
Yeah.
You have to believe in equality, and that's the basis of feminism.
What I'd love to know, Brita, actually is, during the period of the pandemic where women as well as men, have had to stay at home, how that has impacted, anxiety, depression, hormones, and usage of the likes of benzodiazepine, because sometimes getting away from the home and the stresses of that job at home, that's why we go to work. To a certain extent, some people are not made to be full-time stay-at-home parents. I was one of them. I needed to get out and go to work for my mental health, even from a young age. So I wonder how that has impacted women. Are there any insights or statistics around anything like that yet?
I don't know, Stephanie, have any statistics forward yet? But mental health, I'm guessing, is, from listening to people, I don't know specifically, is there a gender difference, women and men?
Oh, yeah, there is. If you look at, there's a publication by Community Work Ireland, so that's the CWI.ie, and they did a study on the impact of COVID on communities, and absolutely, it's the women that were by and large. Now, some men are struggling too, but again, it's the emotional labor, isn't it? It's the emotion, it's the homeschooling, it's the shopping, it's all of that, and that is by and large women as well.
It absolutely is women. Yeah.
Pardon?
It absolutely is women.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Women.
Yeah.
And it's women that are on the WhatsApp groups for the school. It's women that turn up to the to the parent teacher meetings. It's all of that. It is changing, and so that's great. And I know a lot of men want to get into it. But yeah, Community Work Ireland did that study, and they work in communities, and it is stark, really, because we have been, I suppose, for women and for humanity, we have taken a step forward, but it's 2 steps back, really, in terms of the fear and the anxiety and all of that has ensued because of COVID.
And again, I can see why they want more women around the decision-making tables, because when I look back on the first year of COVID, and I often thought of, let's say, mothers on their own, childcare and education were the 2 things they just said, that's it, that nobody thought about them. And if you're on your own, they're the 2, you need it to work, you need childcare, or you need to be able to send them to school or preschool. And that was forgotten about. That wasn't the priority then. It was about keeping businesses open. And it's all about priority. You see, women, I think we prioritize differently to men. That's why I think
that's because we try to look after other people as well, and we put other people first. And interestingly, in my experience over the last year and working with people in business, empathy is a huge part of customer experience. And what's been interesting is that a lot of the people who've needed help in their business have been men. And it's because they're lacking in that empathy, or they're just not sure how to respond in an empathic way, even though they recognize that that's what's required. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Whereas the women, that's not something that they typically need help with. They need help in terms of how to come across more confidently and articulately articulate better what their message is. So it's interesting, the contrast that comes through from a business perspective around the empathy and that, yeah.
But it is interesting too, because we still have segregated schools in Ireland, very much, in terms of education for boys. Many of the schools in Kilkenny, for instance, even the primary schools are segregated. So until you have that, it's unnatural, really, to be segregated. You don't find it anywhere else except in convents and in seminaries, maybe, So I think until we get to that place where we will admit at policy level that it is better for young people to be mixing and to be learning from each other and get away from that laddish culture and that girlish culture, that it's much better. Now, of course, many parents will think, well, girls in girls' schools do better if they're in girls' schools because they don't have the distraction. But, the distraction, it doesn't last very long.
No, and Stephanie, I would agree with you. The distraction does not last very long. It's no. So in fairness, girls, if they're good, they'll get on regardless.
Absolutely.
And I do think, oh yeah, absolutely, yeah. But the distraction is the first month maybe.
Yeah.
But after that, you can forget it. It's they're all on a level playing field after that.
Yeah, yeah. But that again is a legacy, you see, of Ireland in terms of just segregating. Religion, of course, was segregating. Schools segregating. And I remember when I was growing up in the Midlands, the church was segregated. There was a women's side and a men's side. And I still, when I go there and I bring my mother, my mother wouldn't let me go to the men's side for one, but I couldn't physically walk over to the men's side because I would feel that everybody was talking about me, like, who does she think she is? And I remember the first couple that came to Durrow Church in Offaly, the first man and woman that came and sat on the women's side, they were the talk. They were the talk of the place for weeks on end, And I'm so glad now that things have changed, but that's in living memory. That's in living memory. And that we have that legacy there. So we just have to, I suppose, ask the question, why, and then why not, And it's just, it's about just getting it out there and having the conversation and calmly explaining and negotiating, I think, too, it's important.
I definitely think all of this is very learned behavior as well. As you say, it's what we were brought up with and what have you. I know, like in my own family personally, we're like the United Nations when we come together. There's people of all races and colors and skin tones, and it's absolutely fabulous when we have, a family picture. Not that we've had one for a number of years now, but it is great when that happens. But because my family is like that, I suppose my kids are brought up to be inclusive of everybody and not to judge somebody by how they look or how they sound or what they wear and all that sort of stuff. But again, it's how you're brought up, I think. And, I've actually co-authored a book recently, and it's about human experiences. And part of what I talk about in it is that human experiences, it could be manners that you're given. And those manners can come, from a child. They're learned at home. It doesn't matter what your socioeconomic background is or your cultural background. You simply are taught manners or you are not. And so when you go out into society in the world and you have those interactions with people, you're either mannerly or you're not. And it's the same in business, and so those things, they are actually human experiences, but they're taught. And even as adults, they can still be learned. And the thing is, as we grow up, people either choose to learn these things or they choose not to. But it does come down to choice, and they're not things that are expensive to learn or difficult to learn, but it's education. It's like how we started the conversation this evening. It's all about education and being open, isn't it? It's about being open.
And being respectful, I think, really, really important, and knowing.
And listening as well, Stephanie. Listening to I suppose the needs of others.
Yeah.
That
is manners, isn't that manners?
That's exactly it. And you're right, Deirdre. It's either taught or it's not, and it doesn't matter whether you're rich or poor. It's the same thing. It's
And Rita, one thing I forgot to mention is you're also on the Women's Task Force with the government. Tell us about that. What is it, and what do you discuss, and what do you do?
Yeah, the Women's Task Force was set up in 2019 by Simon Harris when he was Minister for Health. And it was really Vicky Phelan, I think, was behind the actual idea of having a women's health task force, specifically to look at women's issues. And the first meeting was in February 2020, and they asked for, invited, let's say, stakeholders working in different areas of women's wealth and health, and well-being to come along to a meeting in the Department of Health. And we had nurses, let's say, working in the whole area of endometriosis. We had teachers working in girls in sport and the importance of getting more and more girls and women involved in sport. Like why I saw it with my own daughters, the dropout rate for girls in sport plummets from about 13, 14 onwards, whereas boys continue to play sport. So, and we were representing, there were four of us there representing menopause, and it was very interesting. They had the European head of women's health. She did a talk on the day, and she's very involved because the Women's Health Task Force in Ireland is the first in Europe that was actually set up. And just 2 months ago, the UK, Carolyn Harris, she's an MP, a very, very strong woman from Wales, and she's now very, very interested in menopause, and she set up a women's health task force specifically for menopause in the UK, which is going to be facilitated this month. But yeah, it's great to have it. We have meetings, let's say, about 3 times in the year, and menopause then was chosen as one of the top 3 things to look at in 2020. That was February, just before COVID hit, and then COVID arrived in March, so 2020 was all about COVID. We didn't get a look in, which was understandable, but we were back with them just there in November, and they have put menopause up to the top because they did a survey. They went out to people in Ireland, and menopause keeps coming back in as a result of Joe Duffy. Thanks to Joe Duffy uncovering. He did what Catherine Corliss is trying to do, is like shine a light on this issue that has silenced far too many women for too long, and it's completely wrong the way it has been depicted. Menopause, you know, it's the template for women post-fertility. Who are you once your fertility is over? And Stephanie, going back to the patriarchy and the systems and structures that have been handed down, is that a woman's role in society is to produce children, and that's it, you're shafted. And that still happens in Iran and Iraq. Women, they have no standing in society once they've had children. So that's the template for women post fertility in the world. Who are we? And I said, Roisin, before you finished up, I wanted to tell the story about the whales and the research that has been done in the last 4 or 5 years on mammal. The only mammal in the world that goes through menopause is the whale. And yeah, whales post-menopause, once they come out of menopause, they're the leaders in their pods. So researchers in Australia and America are looking at what is the role for women in society post-menopause. And they're looking into, is it innate leadership? Is it this kick-ass attitude that a lot of women get? Roisin, we've spoken about this. This kick-ass, I don't care what people think about me anymore. Attitude, yeah, that women, that is there to be tapped into. And innate leadership is another potential that researchers are looking at. So, you know, there's a lot of optimism there as well. And it's like setting little fires everywhere. And even us here tonight now talking and discussing, you know, how I think how it's going to impact other women, everything that we're doing, all of us. I mean, people will look at you, Anne, and look at the business you've set up. You know, you started out there and you started up a business, and look at how successful 3 years on, you're still in business. So you're a role model. We're all role models for other women that are coming up behind.
Well, Breda, I don't know. I could tell you all the downsides as well now quite easily. But anyway, never mind.
Sure, I could say the exact same. I think that nobody has a smooth ride or a linear ride. It's all like
no, you're right, and you know,
Yeah.
and it is up and down, and you know, look at like everything, you know it yourself. You have to put yourself out there and do it, and if you don't, you can forget about it, and that's a confidence piece that you have to learn yourself as well.
It is,
you know.
and add to that, just like menopause, we should be talking about the negative things as much as we talk about the positive things, you know, and like that with everything in life, just to be sharing experiences and learning from one another. Really, that's what it's all about.
The day that I went on a call with somebody, and he asked me my age, as I was trying to pitch my business to him, was the day that I turned around and said, I'm going to prove to you that I can actually do this. And I suppose that's only one of many doors that were slammed in my face, to say the least. But I suppose it's incidences like that probably have driven me on, and given me more confidence, I suppose. And it probably is a little bit, I really don't care now, you know, the worst you can say is no, you know, so on you go.
Or even Deirdre, looking at thoughts, I mean, there's been the research in neuroscience, let's say, in the last 4 or 5 years on the brain. They've learned more about the brain in the last 4 or 5 years than they have the previous 100 years. And like the 55-year-old brain can be as sharp as the 25-year-old brain. And the day I heard that, I thought, oh my God, I always thought our brain cells were dying off.
I know, that's it, really.
Yeah, and it's only a myth. That's a myth. But all the latest research in neuroscience, the 55-year-old brain can be as sharp. And Ian Robertson, he's a professor up in Trinity, and he was saying it's all about this growth mindset. Keep learning. Excuse me, I'm going to have to get a glass of water.
Well, while you're getting a glass of water, I remember Breda told me, and you think that we're all here. We're all sort of post-menopause. You went into early menopause at 35, Deirdre. And when you think of our ages that we all are, all maybe different, slightly couple of years between us all, and maybe younger, Deirdre, you're probably the youngest of us all, but look what we're doing. We're in our 50s and we're all starting out. You're an educator, Stephanie. You're empowering younger women, and not just younger women, but women returning to education. And we are all, here we are, we're all on radio, we're all talking, we're all entrepreneurs, or we're all leaders within our community. So that says a lot. And really, you once said to me as well that there's more female entrepreneurs in their 50s than what there is any. So I think women within their sort of midlife, from I would say from 35, 38 upwards, we're in our prime. We're in the prime of our years of our life. And I remember years ago, if we look back to years ago, and I read the book that Claudia Finn wrote. What was it? It's Through Her Eyes, The Forgotten History of Irish Women. Claudia Finn, she's a journalist with the Irish Examiner. Women in our history, at 30, in our midlives, when our children are growing up, women were in fact the elders within our community. And then through history, I'm going to have to let the cat out, through history then, that women then were sort of sidelined. And when you think back to the War of Independence and the Easter Rising, women were at the forefront, and then we were airbrushed out. So it's only now that we're Irish women are being re-empowered, because Irish women, throughout our history, we were strong, independent women.
Isn't it true what they say, Roisin? Behind every strong man stands an even stronger woman.
Yeah,
absolutely. I've just put that Community Work Ireland, but also the National Women's Council, which I'm sure Breda and Deirdre and Roisin, you're all familiar with, but wonderful research going on there constantly. So I'd suggest, if you wanted to read more, to do that, and I can put some And we can swap emails anyway, because I would have some global perspectives on women and all of that.
And what I do directly after this is I will send you all one another, with your permissions, emails to one another, because I think I'd love to have you all back on together. I'm going to have you all on individually, and I just want to thank you for coming on. And there's no better women I'd love to share Nollaigh Manon with. You know, there's a few more, and I'm like, oh no, I'm going to keep it small and keep it with that sort of unique. And like, I couldn't have planned it if I tried, because you all have something in common. You know one another, you hear from one another, or you just have that rapport with one another. So I want to thank you, each and one of you: Peter Birmingham of Midlife Women's Rock, Stephanie McDermott from Carlow College of St. Patrick's in Ireland, Anne Heaney from Biddy's Good Luck Horseshoes, and Deirdre Martin. Thank you so much for sharing Nollaigh Manon with me, but also being part of my very first Confident Women Ireland podcast. So thank you so much indeed. And I wish I spoke Irish. I don't. I feel ashamed for an Irish name, and I don't speak Irish. So I really do feel sorry about that. So, but thank you so much. And, maybe 2022 is about building up women's voices, and it's what you all are, is really leaders within your own communities. What's more powerful than that?
Oh, absolutely, Roisin, and thanks for having us all. We're delighted to be here, so we are.
Absolutely, Roisin. Yes, it was lovely.
No, it was great. Yeah,
Thank
absolutely.
you, and wishing you every success with your podcast. May you have millions of subscribers from all around the world.
Yeah.
Small steps, small baby steps. But thank you. It's something. Confident Women Ireland is something, as I said, that I had in my head since 2007, and then in 2016, I actually went and bought the domain names, in case anybody else bought them. So somebody could read my mind or something like that. So no, it's been a very long, and it's well planned, and I think all of it's just happened organically, although I have put a lot of research and thought into what I wanted it, as Deirdre says, what I wanted it to look like, sound like, feel like, and even smell like, even down to the perfume I wear. It's like before I came down this, even though I'm at home, put a bit of perfume on, so it's about getting to the senses, and it's about, like what we're doing here, meeting other women and celebrating other women within our communities, within our nation and globally, and spreading that good luck of the Irish luck. And also, it's about other women sharing their tips, ideas, and expertise on how to empower women. And that's what, with confidence in all different ways.
Yeah, and learning from one another, Roisin. I think that's a great way of getting on as well,
Absolutely, and not to fear, not to treat each other as competition, but
no, absolutely,
solidarity.
Solidarity. Absolutely. And I think we can all learn from one another, and that's the most wonderful thing. So it is.
Yeah, and I think.
Roisin, sorry, I remember when I was starting out, I remember when I did my first talk here in Waterford on menopause, I was scared shitless because nobody was talking about menopause at the time, back in 2019. And it was other women kind of supporting me and saying to me after, you have to keep going. And throughout that year, 2019, when I just started thinking, will I start talking about it? And will I start gathering groups? It was other women. I needed that validation for some reason. I felt, the lack of confidence coming back out into the workforce. But the validation from other women was massive for me. And I often give that tip. It's other women, and never underestimate, when you give a compliment to another woman, how that makes them feel. And that's something we women, we need the validation, I think, to just help us to move forward. There's something there about that around our confidence or our courage that maybe men have more naturally, but then we have other massive
I think they probably aren't afraid, Breda, whereas I think we are. We have a fear of, we probably have a fear of something going wrong, whereas they don't.
And that's cultural, you see, I think, Anne, as well. I've realised in the last year, it's not something that we can blame our parents. It's actually coming in society. It's coming down it's women and handed down to us. We're not there to stand out. It's not natural.
Yeah.
But I think
Yeah.
Stephanie actually touched on that earlier in terms of the segregation of schools, because boys are taught to, there's the ball, let's all dive in together and compete for it and go for it. Oh, it's snowing outside. But whereas by comparison, girls are taught to be nicer and to step back. So if you look at people applying for a job, a man will apply for a job. I think it's some very low statistic. If there's 20% or 30% of, if they meet only that amount of what's on the job specification, they'll apply for it. Whereas women need to meet nearly 90% before they'll consider putting themselves forward. So
absolutely, Deirdre, I've seen it all the time. Women come in and they underplay themselves. A man can come in and, just like, there's no problem, sure, I could do that,
That, in my opinion, actually comes back from childhood and some of the games that children play, and that we as parents often encourage them, or how we encourage them to play.
But, yeah, Deirdre, I say this to my students all the time. It's about the socialization. Any Christmas morning, go into any house in the state, you will have the little girls pushing the prams in the pink colors with the dolls, all of that. And you can even get babies now that you can change their nappies and you can feed them. And the boys, I did it myself. The boys will have the dark colored, they'll be on skateboards and, and that does, you're gone down on a nurturing route from a very, very early age. And you're gone down a completely different route from a very, very early age where you take chances.
Isn't it from age 3 or 4 that becomes part of our mentality? Isn't it from a very early age or something?
Very early age.
Yeah.
And the problem then, you see, what I've seen from working with women is that we're taught to nurture, right?
Yes.
We've never been taught to nurture ourselves.
Never.
That's right.
We're not taught to nurture ourselves. Again, with religion, let's say the organized religions, it's all about helping others. But they never say we have to help ourselves first. Overflow your cup and then you can help others. So that's where we haven't been educated correctly. But the nurturing others. When I meet so many women, they're so brilliant at looking after everybody else, but they're not looking after themselves. And you can only, that's where the burnout then starts, which is very, very common.
And you have to, a very good friend of mine, she talks about honoring yourself. And that's true, even a gift that you're dropping hints, that you want something. I think, they're not.
Has Stephanie frozen, has she?
She has, yeah.
I think she has, yeah.
And what's it, Roisin, I think you're going to have trouble getting us to stop talking now. But I was coaching a lady earlier on, and what's interesting is her clients, she's a coach, and her clients are women who have been in business for a number of years, but they're kind of stuck in the sense that, the pandemic has hit and that's caused them to step away from maybe some of the societal outlets that they might have had in terms of socializing, meeting for coffees and meeting with friends to be able to offload whatever they needed to offload. And where they are now is that since the shift and things have moved online very much for most people's businesses, or in much more so for people whose businesses wasn't online previously, that now her clients are really stuck, and they're stuck because they're people pleasing and they're trying to look after and nurture everybody else, including their clients, so much so that the people who are suffering the most and may not even realize that they're totally in burnout are the business owners themselves. And there's so many people like that out there, and that's exactly what it is. They're nurturing everybody else except for themselves.
And that's something
amazing.
I learned.
Yeah.
That's something I had to learn, I would say, over the last couple of years, was to start putting myself first. As a mother parenting alone for the last 20, Naomi's 30 this year, 24 years. And that was something I had to learn. Again, the nurturing and putting everybody else first was to say, okay. And it only took me until last year. Nope, this is what I want. And, and things like that. And that is really right. And that's something that we have to start doing, is putting ourselves first as women. and saying no. Now, that's what my menopause gave me my chutzpah back. It gave me my voice back, and I learned to say no. And
good for you.
Yeah. And it took that, and I'm still working on getting my body back. But so that's something powerful. So to end off, lady, if you could give women 3 tips today, or advice, or nuggets of wisdom from your own background and from your own being leaders of your own communities or of your own areas of expertise, what would it be? Breda, I'll come to you first.
Okay, Roisin, thank you so much for having me here this evening. I was delighted and lovely to meet all the other women that are here this evening. The 3 tips I guess I would give would be, number 1, as women and women in our middle years, we need to value the massive skill set that we have acquired by the time we get to midlife. I don't think society values it, so we have to really value it ourselves. Number 2 would be the self-care piece, the importance of realizing self-care is not selfish. When we look after ourselves, you have energy then to look after others. There's kind of there's a dilemma there, and something that we haven't been taught, which is really look after yourself, and then you're going to be brilliant, and you're going to be able to give the best of you to your relationships and to your clients and everything. That would be the second one. And the third one, when it comes to menopause, reach out, ask for help, educate yourself, buy my book.
Buy the book.
Go online. Yeah, and if there's the physical, but there's the emotional, psychological stuff, and then there's also a spiritual element to it. There's 4 dimensions to try through those perimenopause, menopausal years. I've done the research, and I had to dig and dig and dig. And I was so angry as I was digging that I didn't have the information, or that this information isn't out there. But they're my 3 tips to anyone listening.
Thank you, Breda. And Deirdre, what would your 3 tips be? And you know what? As soon as your book is published, we have to get you on and talk about the book that you have co-authored as well.
Thank you. I'd love that. And thank you for having me here this evening, along with these great ladies, Roisin. And as I say, best of luck with you with your podcast and success with Confident Women Ireland. I suppose 3 tips. It's hard to just give 3, so really well done you. I'd say the first one is my life motto has been, since I was about 16, to try is to risk failure, not to try will guarantee it. So just try. That's the first thing. No matter what it is, just try. The second thing is, you're not for everyone, and everyone is not for you. So if people don't like you, that's fine, and that's their opinion, and they're entitled to their opinion, and their opinion is none of your business unless you ask for it. So let them go. Okay. And you don't need that in your life, and you don't need it in your business either. So if you have a business people don't like you, that's fine. And the third thing I'd say is get support. Everybody needs support, and it can be a little bit like, and we're amongst women, and I said this about a female mastermind group I was in earlier on this year, which was having a network of support is a little bit like having a really good underwired bra. When things get bumpy, you have lots of support there when you don't even realize you need it. So make sure you're surrounded, or you have the support, so that when things get bumpy, you're well protected. That's it. So it could be a coach, it could be a network, it could be a mentor, it could be a group like Confident Women Ireland. It could be whatever it needs to be, but just make sure you have the support you need.
Thank you so much, Deirdre. And Anne Healy, what would your advice be as a I know we're all female entrepreneurs, and Stephanie's an educator who inspires, empowers women, but what would your 3 years, very successful, and come from the corporate world as well? What was your 3 tips?
I suppose the first thing I would say is look after yourself, because if you don't look after yourself, you can't look after anybody else. So, and it's probably something that I didn't do for quite a long time myself, but there you go. Looking at it now, that's so important. I'd also say to any woman, if they're not happy with what they're doing, you have the power to change it. Don't be afraid of it. You need to do something about it. And I think that's really, really important for our own happiness and contentment and all the rest. And then the last thing would be to have confidence and faith in yourself. It mightn't all come together initially, but it will. So, you know, to go with it. If it's an idea that you have, go with it and have confidence and faith in yourself. Thanks, Roisin, and thanks. It was a great evening.
Thank you.
Delighted to be here.
Well, I'm delighted you're all here.
Yeah.
I couldn't have planned it with, and the synergy and the rapport that you all have. I couldn't have planned it if I tried.
There you go.
Thank
Now,
you.
and you didn't know that we kind of might have vaguely known one another
No,
as well.
No.
Yeah.
And I didn't even know that you'd all have sort of a rapport or a connection, even mindsets like one another. And so I couldn't have planned it. So fate. I believe in destiny and fate.
Very
But
good.
sometimes with a bit of help. Stephanie, as an educator and as an advocate of human rights and who lectures in adversity and who lectures in diversity and, remind me again, equality.
Equality.
What
Yeah,
would your 3 tips be?
Yeah, I suppose, I mean, I'd reiterate what everyone said, but I would always try to take the opportunity to empower others, you know, pay that compliment to, you know, whether it's someone in a hijab, your scarf looks beautiful, you know, to give that validation that they're not walking around the street thinking people are looking at them because I'm wearing a scarf, you know, what beautiful colors. So, you know, pay that compliment to others, listen to other women, and I mean listen, and then honoring yourself and just pay homage to other women, because we're, you know, Breda said it earlier, we're an untapped resource. So I just turned 60, but really that's the new 40. So really what I'm coming away with now tonight is that, you know, I'm coming into my own. And I would also say, you know, to get to know yourself, you know, get to know yourself. And that is through, you know, whether it's researching or talking to other women, but it would be really important. And then reflect, you know, and it's okay. You may not have the, you know, Deirdre said it's okay not to be okay, but you may not have the confidence to say an outright no, but you can say things like, I'm not sure if that's going to work for me, or that just sounds a little bit complicated right now, you know, and just be able to, and you'll work up to saying no, you know, you'll just work up to it. And I've spent many years, you know, kicking the ball down the road, but I've started to learn to say, well, I don't think, and you're actually more respected for it, because, you know, it's better just to say, I don't think that's going to suit me, you know, or I'm just not comfortable with that. So I think all of those things. And Roisin, thank you so much. It's been a really unique Nollaigh namBan. And it was just lovely sharing with everybody. And I've learned so much. And I mean, always take the opportunity to learn. Always take the opportunity to learn and to ask questions. Always ask the question. You know, always ask the question.
Well, ladies, thank you so much. You know, I always say, you know, I always think, you know, and it's something I did with the radio program, the Woman to Woman show, and the Start Me Up business program. But there's something I've always learned through the Woman to Woman show, was how I get inspired by the women on the show and the panel of women. And that's something I would like now. I always had planned to do podcasts before I went on the radio, and I had no intentions of ever going on radio. That was like, I used to say no. And when I went on the radio, I was only supposed to, I came up with the radio format, the Woman to Woman show, in my dissertation, because it's on politicians' media experiences. And one TD said there's no all-female panel radio show. So I happened to bump into an RT presenter, a former RT presenter, at a coaching course. And at that night time, I was doing my my thesis, and I hadn't a clue how even begin with thesis. So I went to this weekend conference, and everybody else is celebrating. I had books from the IT Cardo library, how to even think about writing a thesis. And I was like, oh my God, I'm out of my depth here. So she came over, she noticed it. And then one day walking the corridor, are you doing a thesis? And I said, yeah. What are you doing, Anne? And I said, the comparative analysis of male and female politicians' media experiences. Wow, she said, that would be great. So we started talking. She said, that would make a great radio program. I said, I know, woman to woman. And she says, are you going to go on radio? Not a hope. I will produce. I love producing. I love the presenting. Nope, I don't even have a radio voice. And I said, no interest. And when I was in college, I in the radio studio, I gave my slots to all the younger students. And I said, what is an old woman like me going to be on radio? Not, I'm never going to be on it. And I had no interest. And then lo and behold, the very first radio show I had, I was on, and the presenter who I went on, I said, I will produce it. I will produce it, no problem, but I will not present it. The very first time, because she stayed for 2 weeks, and then she said, no, she had to move on. And I was like, hello, this is Roisin the Cleric on the Woman to Woman show. I mean, I was a meek mouse. I was like, hello. I was terrified. And I think, well, this is sink or swim, you know? And it's, you know, when you have a goal and you set the goal and you have to follow through. I was like, yeah. So, hello. So, and here I am in 2022. That was in October 2017. And I never thought that I would even be doing radio shows or podcasts. And I thought, well, a big thing is far out there. It wasn't here, it was far out there. And I want to thank each and every one of you ladies, because you've inspired me in many, many ways. And you know, it's about empowering other women. And this is,
I know, but Roisin, isn't that actually a lesson in itself now? Just what you're after saying there, like, isn't that a lesson for women anyway? Like, you can do it, or you can give it up.
Yeah.
And you got on with it, you did it, and look at where you are now. That's wonderful.
And I think it's about, and what we're all talking about is about taking yourself out of your comfort zone. Dare to do it. Dare to get out of your comfort zone. Find that courage. Find that tenacity. Even if you have to dig deep down to find it. If you dig deep enough to find that courage, that inspiration, that motivation, you will find it. If it's a purpose, you know, it's like, I'm going to get that sale today, or I'm going to go and do this, or am I out of my depth? No. And it's about, as you said, women supporting women. And that's what another thing Confident Women Island is about, is women supporting women. And women like we are doing here, creating a platform for women to share their knowledge, their expertise, and their courageous strength and vitality. And that's what we're doing tonight. And that's what I hope, that's my hope for Confident Women Island. So thank you so much. And I feel like a privilege tonight having you all here on the launch of Confident Women Island. So thank you so much.
Roisin, the very best of luck with it. And would you send everybody's email, or I'm going to try and follow you on social media if anyone's on social.
Oh, super. Yeah. Thanks, Bria.
Yeah, exactly.
So just tell before we go, just everybody tell them who you are, your company name, and your platforms you're on. Deirdre Martin, what platforms are you on, and what's your handles? Deirdre, you're on mute.
You'll find me on LinkedIn. I'm at Deirdre Martin. You'll find me on LinkedIn, Deirdre Martin. It's the handiest place to find me. I'm also on Instagram at Deirdre Martin Consulting. Website address is deirdremartinconsulting.ie.
Thank you, Deirdre. And Anne Healy from Biddy's Good Luck Horseshoes. What platforms are you on?
Roisin, I am on Facebook and Instagram as Biddy's Good Luck Horseshoes. Would love a follow. I'm on Twitter as Biddy's Good Luck, or Anne Healy. You'll find me anyway. And then I'm in LinkedIn as Anne Healy. And obviously, I'd love to connect with everybody. Thanks a million.
And Stephanie, what social media platforms are you on, and how can people get in touch with you?
Well, it's Stephanie Niirmatha, so it's my Irish name on Facebook. I'm on Twitter at smcdermott, I think 2020. And yeah, you'll find me on the Carlow College website, or I think Action Ireland website, and general human rights kind of, you know, areas. So yeah, I'm there. So and I have to get onto LinkedIn. I just didn't do it, but I really need to do it, because I know it's a great place to find people as well.
Brilliant. Well, we'll all welcome you to LinkedIn when you arrive on LinkedIn. And thank you so much for that, Stephanie McDermott. Breda Birmingham, what platforms are you on, and how can people find you?
Okay.
And I'll hold this book up while you're talking.
I'm on LinkedIn, Breda Birmingham. I'm the midlifewomenrockproject.com is my website. And I'm on Instagram, I'm the Midlife Women Rock Project. I'm on Twitter at Midlife Rock, and I'm on Facebook, Breda Birmingham and the Midlife Women Rock Project. And Roisin, I don't think I told you this, Barnes and Noble in the USA have taken my book as well. So they're selling the book on their websites and in some of their shops in America. I just discovered
Barnes and Noble, that's fantastic.
Barnes and Noble, yeah, which was a lovely Christmas present to get to hear.
I love the book. I was, do you know, it was like I read the book. I actually said that I put it up on Twitter. I lit the fire and I spent the whole weekend and I read it. And Breda, thank you for, when I got to, now usually I read the last, if I get any books, I read the last page. I always want to know if it's a happy ending or not. And this one I wasn't. But then when I came in and you mentioned me, I was like, oh my God, I don't think I was ever silent before. I don't think I was ever speechless. So thank you so much. That was a shock.
You're a huge part. I mean, when I think of my early, back in 2000 when I started this, and so many people just did not want to hear. They were so uncomfortable around someone talking about me. And I mean, friends of mine here said to me about 6 months in, they said, Breda, what the heck are you doing talking about menopause? Could you not have picked a different subject? But that's the cultural story that has been handed, and that has to change. That story, we need to change it for the next generation. And I mean, I've become friends with so many people in the UK, women in the UK, who are speaking up now, working as Pilates, yoga instructors, nutritionists, pelvic floor, doctors, midwives, and they're all coming into the menopause space because this is a movement. There's a midlife women's movement in the UK, which has really gained traction. And it's only in the last 2 years that this is coming. I'm just hoping that the same thing is going to happen here in Ireland. Roisin, I have to go, ladies, now.
Go on. And thank you so much indeed, ladies, and happy Nollaigh Manon. How do you say goodbye in Irish, Deirdre? And Stephanie.
Slán.
And I know that.
Good night, Rian Boher, Liz.